How did we lose that game?
I mean, Indian fans were absolutely jubilant. I was jubilant. I think I was screaming at the TV for every wicket, and it was great to see because at the end of the day, we didn't expect it, and we thought 60 overs was a little too less, but it turned out that 52 was good enough for England, and we'll break it down with you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, India pulling off an absolutely brilliant win at Lord's, and we have, of course, David Gower to review it with us right now. David, what have we seen? Because at the end of the day, it goes down in Indian history as one of our finest wins, I'm sure.
You mean England lost? How did that happen? No, you're absolutely right. It was a great game. It's what we, as traditionalists, I guess, we have to call ourselves nowadays, what we like. We like a game that lasts all the way through 5 days, has twists and turns, has people wondering who's going to win, who's on top at any one time. And there are enough twists and turns to keep us going over the 5 days. That's what we love about Test cricket. That's what makes it so entertaining in a very different way, of course, to the white ball cricket we see so much of nowadays. And to go as far as that, get a great result. I have to say, right, first of all, congratulations to India, because that was a stunning final day performance. Literally stunning. I think England from Joe Root downwards were pretty shocked by the way events unfolded. And let's face it, probably 11:30 in the morning, when Rishabh Pant was dismissed, and he seemed to be the key to things happening on that final day, everyone at Lord's, I think, thought, great. From an English point of view, that's the wicket they needed. 2 or 3 more, job done, chase them down, and it could have been England going 1-0 up. So the turnaround, that last, hour and a half in the morning, that really decided the game. How often do we say, my great friend and ex-colleague Michael Atherstone often says, a test match can be lost in one bad session. Well, that was one bad hour, which really cost England. But hats off to India. I thought that was a stunning performance, a sterling performance. I thought just those last 2 sessions on the 5th day, just the way the bowlers kept going, just the way Kohli's enthusiasm kept them going as well, just showed everyone, I think, how passionate this Indian team is. So, yep, they're 1-0 up, and they do deserve it.
Yeah, they do deserve it. And back home here, the feeling is that they're comparing it to the Gabba, which was, of course, not too long ago. How do you see it? Because at the end of the day, you touched upon how stunning their comeback was. Maybe it was that partnership from Shami and Bumrah, which really got India back into the game, and the momentum shifted completely. Do you see it as good as a win as the Gabba? Because it was perhaps a third team out there, but this one, it was special in what regard, you feel?
Well, yeah, the Gabba was very special for all sorts of reasons, against the odds. This, as I say, this was a bad hour, turned the whole game. And can I say, when we started these series of opinions on this series, and you asked me about the various predictions, top run scorers, wicket takers, that sort of stuff. The world's gone mad. The world has gone completely mad, as we now know, when you've got Mohammad Shami and Jasprit Bumrah sharing a partnership on the 5th morning of 89 unbeaten, I think it was. No one, absolutely no one, even their parents, even their closest family, I don't think predicted that one. So yeah, again, big smiles, big smiles. The interesting thing about that, the reason this was so good is that at that stage, that game could easily have gone the other way, could have gone either way, could have gone any way, could have gone left, right, centre, who knows? And so that changed things. Now, the passion, what was interesting about that bad hour, I thought, was that the passions, the emotions got too much in the field for England. And yes, that had been stirred up. Bumrah and Anderson, that sort of stuff that had been going on 2 days beforehand, obviously was the inspiration for that passion. But it's amazing, isn't it, how, and even Joe Root, bless him, had to admit at the end of the game, it's amazing how when the emotions take control and your carefully laid plans become completely mislaid plans, how you can lose a game. Even Joe Root had to admit at the end he got his tactics wrong. And that was the classic time, actually, and I know this is with the benefit of hindsight, but that was the classic time just to take a calm look at it, say, right, who have we got batting? We've got Mohammad Shami, who could have been out first ball with a bit of a wafting fence. You've got Jasprit Bumrah. How are you going to get them out? If you're going to feed their passion and wind them up, you're going to struggle. But if you can carefully bowl at them with some sort of constructed plan, maybe leave a couple of men out for the big shots, yes, but otherwise just bowl, as we say, almost normally, and maybe think about hitting the stumps, not heads. I mean, it's always dramatic when heads are struck, and of course we have these that's another protocol, concussion protocols these days, where everyone smiles and says I'm fine, puts a new helmet back on again, and continues swishing it around the ground. But that hour was where Joe and the bowlers, and the experienced bowlers, Jimmy Anderson, the man has been around for 3,000 years, got 80 million wickets. That's when you need to say to Jimmy, how are we going to get these people out? Maybe the odd Yorker, maybe you aim at the stumps a bit more often, because, I know how dangerous it can be when people are swishing the bat down the order with gay abandon and with apparently no responsibility. It's a tough time to be a captain. It's a tough time to be a bowler. But actually, you've got to somehow just calm the whole process down and say, right, we've got to get these guys out. We've got to get them out soon. Let's just stop trying to kill them. Let's try and get them out.
Yeah, let's talk tactics, because you already hinted upon where England got it wrong. I want to ask you from a psychological point of view, were they actually trying to get India riled up, actually look at getting the batsmen up? Because at the end of the day, you made some pertinent points about perhaps bowling fuller. Was that the key? Do you think England missed a trick there?
Well, I mean, when you're in that situation, I've seen this for many, many years now, both at, say, county level here in England. I've seen it happen in test matches before, all too often. And it's always, shall we say, an unanswerable question what the correct tactic is, because you get these tail enders. And I've seen all sorts of people who, they back away, they don't play orthodoxly, they do very strange things, because they're not trying to get in line. They've got good eyes, possibly, and they're just trying to smash the ball. And when you do that, it does upset the rhythm of any bowler. And it seems, including people like Anderson, and the England bowlers on the day. So it is a tricky one. And captains, you have to work out, well, is it more likely to be sliced over the slips and land 10 yards in where third man is? So do you post a man down there? If they get hold of it, the deep mid wicket comes into play potentially with the slog. So you can have a couple of men out like that. But as I say, for instance, the Yorker, how often do we say to people in one-day cricket when the ball's flying everywhere, how about the Yorker? How often when the Yorker works and you land the Yorker correctly, do we see stumps rearranged? So actually, that's the sort of delivery I think should be bowled in these circumstances more often. Aim at the stumps, full and straight. If you get it right, and I know there is a margin for error, but if you get it right, the tail ender sometimes struggles with that. But yes, you just need to slow the whole thing down, calm the whole thing down. I mean, I'm sorry, but it was pure passion and emotion, and it worked more positive. I mean, in those circumstances, I think it always works more positively for the batsman. So Jasprit Bumrah comes in with a career average of 2, whatever it was at the time, and he's hit on the head twice. Smiles his way through. I mean, great character, absolutely great character. But the more they bowled short at him, the more he seemed to relish it. The more he seemed to get stuck in. The more he was going to fight back. He wasn't going to give in. And that's where you've got to say, okay, you've made the threat. You've got him thinking about the short ball. You've got him backing away. You've got him playing shots. But if you can do a Bumrah to Bumrah and bowl, I mean, he is one of the great men bowling that Yorker I was talking about. So if you out Bumrah, if you'll pardon the language, then you might actually get him out. And you might not have a partnership of 89, and you might not be facing a total that was beyond England at any stage with only less than 2 sessions to go. And you might have had a target that was chaseable. And at that stage, let's face it, when a target is chaseable, yes, it becomes a great game, but actually it changes the balance, changes the psychology. But anyway, no use worrying about that now. For England, they've got to look ahead to 3 more games. They look ahead to games which, if they get close again, as they did at Lord's, and let's face it, as I say, having a game which could have gone either way points to the fact that other games in the future could equally go either way. And that's certainly what England have to think, although they have 1 or 2 other things to think about as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of time for reflection. Good that they have a little extended break to kind of tinker their team around, and there will be changes. We'll come to that in due course time. But I want to ask you about the altercations out there. Got a little bit hot under the collar, should we say, spiky. We saw that with Bumrah and Butler. We saw that with Kohli welcoming Robinson to the crease. What was your pick of the lot in terms of all the sledges which went out there?
I didn't hear them. I mean, I spent quite a lot of that game, I spent the first 4 days in the stands, various different parts of the ground, being entertained by some very nice people, I have to say, and keeping an eye on the game, of course. If you go back to the first part of all that, which was basically Jimmy Anderson being roughed up at the end of England's first innings, Jim is an interesting character because he'll come back and they were all talking then. I mean, that was getting quite spicy then. And the other side of that, you mentioned Butler. Well, he, for someone who seems to be so very quietly spoken off the field, and he comes across as such a gentle character off the field, a number of times I've seen him quietly adding words into the fray out in the middle in those exact circumstances. Just points, of course, to the fact that he is a tough competitor. I mean, they're all tough. These are international cricketers. There's a lot at stake. And when passions rise like that, well, it's almost akin to, say, a rugby team where they've just had a bit of a set to, everyone piles in. I mean, they're all coming in fist flying. In this case, of course, it's the words that are flying rather than the fists. And I mean, you have to say that we could possibly do without that. In fact, definitely do without that sort of thing boiling over in that fashion. Umpires stepped in, and we had 2 very good umpires at that game. So I mean, they know what to do in those circumstances. You try and take the odd person out of the melee, try and take them apart, try and get them to calm down, try and get them to respect the mores of the game. But it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, people, we all like a bit of passion. We like people to play with pride, to play with their national flag on their sleeve, as it were, and really, battle to win games like this, which was there to be won, of course. And we don't like them to overstep the mark. So when the passions are running so high, when the stakes are so high, I'm prepared to understand that, we'll see a few things like this happening. But nonetheless, there's obviously a line. Umpires are in charge of that line. Captains, of course, are in charge of that line as well. And I've done it before many years ago, of course, now where you just will quietly bring a man out of the fray, try and get him away from the heat, and just try and allow things to calm down a bit. But I tell you what, it sets it up for the rest of the series, doesn't it?